How's it going, folks? Lepidopatra here with a long-awaited, updated Darkface deck profile. It has been a long time. I think the last one I did was actually a few years ago. Back in the day, man, back before Merciless was even a thing. I strayed away from my from my normal path with that. It was a shame too because I was really getting into an interesting place with my build before all this stuff came out, and I wish I was able to share it, but it doesn't really quite matter now, does it? Yes, so big disclaimer to anyone who watches this video is not going to be short. I want to give a full explanation of why I run what I run. A lot of thought, effort, and a lot of note-taking and planning has gone into every individual choice in this deck. It comes off a little more unconventional than others, except for Imagine Your Goddess, because good God, that guy runs Zeus. And man, it does not get any more outside the box than that, unless you're running like Master Beetle or something, or fucking Hellspider. Anyway, yeah, so this build is a little different, and of course, I like to have a bit of variety to what I do and what I play, and if you're here for a quickie, just in and out deck profile, MCO40 has a really good one, and I'm sure Card Fighters with their minute and a half long video runtime will get you what you need, but this is a very detailed, full discussion of what I run and why, so stick around, we'll have a good time. Anyway, let's get started with the starter. So, I decided to run Crime Bug in this build. Right now, you're down to 3 choices: Rosenberg, Crime Bug, and Prom Larva. We're going to go right to Rosenberg and say that Rosenberg is a really decent choice for basically just sniping certain things that you don't want to be targeted. What I found with that and in using that was that there aren't a lot of builds that really seem to care too much. In fact, the only thing I ever played that was completely thrown off by it was Wiseman, because you hit their Wiseman, like, well, shit, I can't restand it now. And I don't run into Wiseman nearly enough to have that influence my starter. We then have Prom Larva. Prom Larva, if you don't know what he does, is the brand new starter, and all he is during the beginning of your ride phase, counterblast 1, throw him in the soul, rest everything on your opponent's field, and draw 1. The benefit there is you get a free card in your hand, not free, but you get a card in your hand, a new resource, and you get to rest everything on your opponent's field. If you're playing certain decks, especially Gear Chronicle, they're going to leave something standing behind their Vanguard to prevent you from making your plays with Overwhelm, and it's kind of annoying. The problem being, I don't feel like it's worth the counterblast at all. This deck does countercharge, but the thing is that you juggle the same 2 or 3 damage every turn, and that 1 extra has always kind of like put me off, and has always kind of been like, shit, like I gotta do a little bit extra now to get that out of there, and I didn't feel like it was worth the hassle for just an extra card in your hand in a deck that already draws out the ass. It just doesn't seem worth it to me. That's why I ran into Crime Bug again. If you don't know what he does, he was the very first GB starter we got way back in the day. I can't believe I'm saying that. It wasn't that long ago. You throw him in the soul, you choose a unit, you can rest it, it's paralyzed, it can't intercept. It's pretty much as simple as that. The unit's paralyzed and it's rested. Resting is the big target, goal with the card you have. This also paralyzes, it also prevents from that 1 column unit from intercepting. It has come in handy quite a bit, especially when you're doing your first stride. If you haven't hit the GB3 yet, your columns aren't as big as you would like them to be in certain cases, especially if you're boosting with like a really good example is what's his face, Dangerous Horn being boosted by like a bomb scissor, right? It's a 20 column. Usually they'll intercept and throw a 5k down there. This kind of prevents that a little bit. No, don't get me wrong. There is nothing wrong with running Prom Larva. It's not. I don't think it's like you're a bad player if you run it. There's also the Giraffe engine. I never mentioned that. That's a completely different topic. That's something that I really haven't touched on or experimented with myself. From what I can see, it's a really decent engine, but I'm kind of a weeb when it comes to my builds. I don't like to mix a bunch of sub-clans together. It makes me OCD, and so that's definitely like for like a very straightforward build, and that's a different topic altogether. But again, Prom Larva, it has that counterblast, it has the rest in the draw. It's a good card, but the thing is, I just don't feel like it's worth that 1 extra card, and that's really all it's bringing to the table. Your opponent is going to leave multiple things standing on the field. You're not running into people that just leave like a whole back row standing, right? Or at least these 2 cards standing. And with something like this, and Bulg Wasp, and there's like an Alicides and all this cool stuff, you're resting plenty, and I just don't feel like Pearl Larva is worth that extra counterblast and that the resources you're losing and what you're gaining. You know, the give and take to me just isn't worth it. So that's why I ran Crime Bug. It's plain, it's simple, it gets straight to the point. I like them a lot. Unique card, you know. And to our grade 3s, we have the MVP herself, Gridora. Oh my god, our queen has arrived. I remember when this card got announced, I was so happy. I almost like it's not even worth summarizing this card because she's so well known at this point, but on ride, on stride, counterblast 1, pick a column, they cannot call to my column, period. It's amazing. I love this card to death. Best of all, though, during the beginning of your turn, GB1, you can Soul Blast 1 to countercharge and steal an opponent's counterblast. They counterblast, you countercharge. This is amazing because this basically means that her skill is going to go off for free. You still juggle it, but it's still going to be counterblasted at some point. I feel like some people are very liberal when they come to the term of like, oh, but it's free. It's like, well, things can still happen. You can still run out of soul. You can still have these different things happen. But she's amazing. I love this card. This is everything that we needed and more. I really hope that this whole direction with Megacolony continues because we've turned over such a new leaf and such a leaf that was open. I mean, I guess the phrase is when a door is closed, they open a window or whatever, and this opened several and beyond that. It's just amazing what this card has done for us. Just phenomenal. And we cannot forget her partner in crime 3, Alcides. Well, he's not our Vanguard anymore, which is a little sad. But he's taken a step back, and he's still made himself really useful. This is purely a guard, this is purely a rear guard, like a heavy rear guard unit. His first skill is on ride or on call, counterblast 1, soul blast 1, choose a whole column, rest everything in it, and paralyze it. Every rear guard in it, not the Vanguard. That is a really decent skill. It does go off sometimes. That's usually where the third damage out of the 2 that you do come from. Now, he's not... You don't use it a lot, and really all the paralyzing is meant to do in this deck is be icing on the cake. You're going to hear me use that term a lot, most likely. This paralyzing, it's icing on the cake, but the real addition is the intercept and resting. This, again, resting, the paralyze is just icing on the cake. You want to put as much pressure on that one column they have as possible. You want to make sure that one column, even though they're still able to use it, is still getting hit with a ton of pressure and still being debilitated in some way, shape, or form. But that doesn't matter right now, because what we're focusing on is the aggression this guy brings. GB2, Dark Device, he gains 10k when he attacks, your opponent cannot intercept. I love this card. Most of your game's going to finish on this guy, and it makes me so happy that Alcides, even though he isn't your main front and center guy anymore, he hasn't gone too far from the front lines, and it's just been amazing. And to round off our grade 3 count, I do still run one OG Darkface. Now this does help out with some rogue matchups. There's some, again, like Fenrir, for example, where I've learned that going into something like this is... The best way to explain my opinion on this is the same opinion I expressed with OG Shiranui in my Dominate deck profile. There are some matchups where he becomes a bit more useful than the aforementioned grade 3, and that isn't the gist of running him, though, because really what he is just a different discard fodder at this point. That's what most of the grade 3s turn into in this deck. But what I like to treat him as is the best of a bad situation card. You don't want to ride this, and let's say you've damage checked 2 of these, you're not drawing into it. I at least want to have a 5th option in the deck that I can draw into and potentially use and not be completely thrown off by if I have to, and that's him. There are a lot of other things you could run in this deck. Again, you could run 4 Alcides, you could run a Limit Breaker, you can sprinkle in whatever you'd like, because that's kind of the cool thing about this deck now is that there's a lot of different options. I personally decided to go with the safer one, which is OG Darkface, because, again, some rogue matchups can be a little more threatened by him, and not to mention he has the option of being a best of a bad situation ride, if that happens to go on. And once or twice it does, but really, you don't see him a lot as that. He is just kind of a discard fodder whenever, you round it up. That's our grade 3s. And oh my god, I cannot even express how thankful I am that we got these cards. Your grade 2s, where your powerhouse begins to happen, is 4 Dangerous Horn. This is your 10k. Every clan seems to have gotten at least one. On ride or call, you can reveal a Darkface in your hand. If you cannot do that, or you do not have a Vanguard with Darkface in its name, they drop back to 5k rather than 10. This is a decent ride. Having a 10k ride that you can prevent rushing with is really helpful. But not to mention, this guy has a great ability where if you have a Vanguard with Darkface in its name that is grade 4, it gains 6k attack and for that one attack and becomes a 16k beater. It's beautiful. This guy becomes such a powerhouse, especially with Overwhelm's GB3, and we'll talk about that later. He's just phenomenal. I am in love with this card. We needed the aggression, and God did he bring it. And he brought it along with his partner here, which is going to be 3 Bulg Wasp. Actually, my favorite card in this deck, art-wise, really. This is like a mini Dangerous Horn, and it also kind of does something a bit akin to what we were talking about with the starting Vanguard option. On call, rest everything, and he gains 2k. Additionally, if your opponent has 2 or more face-down damage, he will gain an extra 5k, which will bring him up to an even 16, making him a huge beater. You don't get him off a lot. Really, he's in the same vein as Punish Stag, and where Punish Stag was just kind of like a quick throw out, had a neat skill, and then you could throw him away with an intercept later. You have to pull from your hand. And that's kind of what he does at this point. He's a beater with throwaway ability, and you can afford to have that in the deck. And with ending plays, especially with Overwhelm, boosting for such big numbers, I'm just in love with the idea of something like this, being able to have multiple uses. It's aggressive. It makes your opponent think twice about how they use their resources, and it also rests everything, which, again, is something that you are going to run into. A smart opponent will leave things standing in different positions, usually behind the Vanguard, and this, remedies that situation. Here's where the unconventional choices start, though. We have 2 Punish Stag. I'm not a big fan of Punish Stag as a main unit. I've seen people run him at 4. I don't really agree with that because really what he is again, icing on the cake. There's a throwaway ability with something cute you can throw out there and target a unit with. You hit a unit, it's Giga Paralyzed. Really all it does is provoke them to get rid of certain things, and it's kind of like a roundabout way of retiring something. You're playing against Overlord. Overlord has their Glow Heater Dragon, and it gains a shit ton of power. You can paralyze that, they now have to get rid of it. Wise Man, they now have to get rid of it. I'm drawing blanks on relevant cards. It depends on the matchup, but this just keeps the little rearguard resources they do have and kind of pushes it down a little bit. That's why we only run him at 2, and it was an experimental thing because originally I ran 4, 4, and then 3 Vulgar Blister, but I took one of these out and 1 Vulgar for these 2, and it's worked out really well. And speaking of Vulgar, he's actually one of my favorite cards in this deck. We also run 2 of him. This guy, if you don't know what he does, he's a 7k base, grade 2, a little odd. You can sack him from the rear guard to stride. Neat little ability. I don't think I've ever really used it before. But aside from that, anything that shares a column with him, any rear guard that shares a column with him, cannot stand during the opponent's stand phase. This is really neat because it's a passive skill. It's not GB restricted. You throw this down, and really it's going to become public enemy number 1 to your opponent. They're going to swing all their shit at it. Not that it should survive 1 attack, but I like the idea of that because it draws away one of their limited attacks, even depending on the deck. And so you can kind of think of him as a roundabout way of defending yourself as well. Not only that, but they have to now sack this whole column, which is potentially 2 units, and really there's no cost coming from it. It just has to exist in the front row rearguard slot in the same column as it. So I came to really enjoy him because he's low effort, and he's not cumbersome in any way, shape, or form. Additionally, though, he his 7k base you think would be an issue, but again, this deck pushes for such big numbers, and it has such a power boost aspect to it that I've never once, even in writing this, ever had this ever get in the way. The most of this happen is that I just don't hit as scary of a column as my other ones, and even then, that's not a big deal, because a scary column to this is like 40, 50k, a scary column with him is like 20, 30, you know, in the mid-20s, the low 30s, and again, does that really matter? No, not really. I highly recommend running Vulgar Blister, at least maybe 2 or 3. He's just a really interesting card to just have kind of camping there and holding your opponent down without really doing anything except for existing. That's our grade 2s. We have our new PG, which is just phenomenal. He's absolutely great. You know, too bad Star Shield is, you know, has left us, unfortunately, but you know, we haven't strayed too far from the countercharging mechanic. Really what you do is you can banish 2 of these from the drop. You can countercharge or soul charge, and then whatever you choose you can draw after that. And it's just a nice resource. I would have preferred... Oh, well, actually, no, I take that back. Never mind. I was going to say something dumb, but anyway, yeah, it's neat. I like it a lot. I like the fact that you can draw a free resource. I like the fact that you can just kind of... I almost always forget to do this because you rarely ever need it with how you juggle the same couple bits of damage, but especially that extra draw is just really handy. We have 3 Stride Fodders because really I haven't seen the need for any more. All the new art, though, is so cute. We have 4 Twilight Matter. He is a really nice card that also kind of pushes the whole power boost agenda that this deck has been going for. On boost, he has Dark Device. On boost, he boosts for 10k, and then after you do that, he gains 3k power and becomes a 10k booster. After the attack is done, he goes in the soul and you draw a card. Now, this is the part where it gets a little weird because I'm actually going to throw out that we also run 2 Bad Luck Star. Now, the whole thing with this is that there's no loss of advantage no matter what you're playing on the field. And what Bad Luck Star does is he kind of becomes like a pseudo Twilight Matter when I don't have a Twilight Matter. Either I've funneled through all of them or I'm just not getting them in my hand. We're going to get back to him in a second, though. So, the whole shtick with these guys is that you aren't losing anything from your hand for getting this. In fact, you are still gaining resources. You still have the same guard power, or not the same guard power exactly, but you still have guard power. And you can still be aggressive, you can still push, and you're not sacrificing anything for that. Really, all you're gambling on is maybe drawing out more triggers, but again, that's not a huge deal. So, with this, you know, let's say Overwhelm, again, you know, she boosts for, we'll say, 4k to the field at this point in time. It becomes a 14k booster. Goes in the soul, you draw a card, you haven't lost anything, any resources from your hand, you haven't lost any guard potential, and all you've done is, the biggest detriment to the whole thing is you've drawn out more of your deck. You've thinned out more of your deck. I mean, congrats, not a big deal. Twilight Matter, or not Twilight Matter, Bad Luck Star, on the other hand, is kind of like a pseudo Twilight Matter within the same situation. On call, if your opponent has 3 or more resting units, Soul Bust 1, draw a card. Again, simple as that. His 6k base doesn't really matter because he is able to become a beater under Overwhelm. And really, you know, I keep repeating myself here, but again, with him, you are not losing advantage. You do Soul Blast, but the thing is that everything goes into the soul here. Bomb Scissor goes... You have 2 triggers that go into the soul, right? You have your crit and your stand. This goes in the soul. I'm trying to think... You have a heal trigger that soul charges. You have a perfect guard that soul charges. Your starter goes in the soul. Like I've never once in this deck ever ran out of soul or ever came close to running out of soul. It doesn't happen. In fact, I have so much to spare, which is why I ran this. It is a free booster that you are able to pump up into a huge number, and it really helps out. And again, you have not lost any advantage in calling these 2 cards. So that's, you know, if you ever see me running like I remember on CFA, some guy was like, "Oh, it's a bad card, you shouldn't be running it." But at the end of the day, it's not a free booster, but it's a very low effort booster, and that's what I want to accomplish. I want to make sure that I'm still keeping up pressure and I don't have to sacrifice guard power to do it. So that's pretty much it. And then we run one blister. Aren't too many standards, right? There aren't like a ton, but there are enough that in running this, I found a lot of use in it. It's won me a lot of games, just to round out some, there's Ziegenberg, there's the Ace, there's Spectral Duke, which or Spectral Duke Diablo, which I mean, it's not. I can see it a lot. I can't even really think the last time I've seen it before. Like, I can't think the last time it's been used against me, but again, it's an option. So, I mean, there's Blottomouse, there's Dogma, there's Gear Next, there's the Blue Wave guy whose name I can't remember. There's the Regalia card, the Minerva Stride. They exist, and they exist enough that running this at 1 has been a huge benefit, and it has won me a ton of games, especially things like the Ace and Blottomouse, which require a cost to pull things out of your hand just to activate the skill. They're not going to see this coming, because nobody runs this anymore, right? So you run the 1, you throw in a G-Guard, and then throw us on top of it. Now they're screwed. They've lost resources, and they can't restand. In some cases, their Vanguard drive count goes down. It's just an absolutely... it's just an absolute treasure of a card to run. I would highly recommend just sneaking in the 1. You don't have to run any more than that. You draw plenty. I've almost never had a game where this hasn't come in handy. I can literally think of one time in the entire time I played this deck, and the months and months of time and effort I put into this deck. And keep in mind, I've played this literally almost every day. At least once a day, every day. And this card has never let me down. So I do highly recommend running this. If you can find the space, of course. Don't debilitate your own build or your own ideas just to run this one tech in here. But if you have the space, absolutely run it. Trigger lineups, we have 8 crits. Bomb Scissor, he soul charges. We have the new guy here, this machining card that call it, recycle it back to the deck, paralyze anything. It's really cute. I like it a lot. We have 4 stand to restand your giant columns, so not columns, but giant cards, and then 4 of the new heal because it's absolutely phenomenal and helps you get your counter charges back if you need it, or soul. But now we're on to the best part of the deck. Now we're on to the golden, the beautiful part of this deck that, man, that just fills me with such joy. We have 3 Overwhelm to start out with. Overwhelm is just a treat in every regard. There's never a bad time to go for her. She's just, you're beautiful. I love you. On Stride, counterblast 1, flip a G unit. Draw 1 for every resting rear guard your opponent has. If there are 1 or less resting units, this card gains quad drive and a crit. So either you draw a ton, or you get power, and then you kind of still draw a ton but with your draw triggers. Either way, there's really no downside to how this card turns out. And then to top it off, to make it just amazing, Generation Break 3, every unit on the field gains 2k for every face-down damage your opponent has. Whether it's early game or late game, this card is just phenomenal. It is the best thing this deck has ever gotten, period. This card is the bomb, and that was a really retarded thing to say. I only run 3, though. I've never once gone into a 4th. There's no need for it. By that time, you have an opening for the GB8 or God knows what else, and so 3 is definitely where you want to stay, especially because she's an expensive card. Like, it's like an $80 card right now, $80 to $100 card, so you only need 3. We do run 2 Merciless, which is a bit of a tech, but one with purpose, of course. The first one is a flip fodder. The second one can either be a flip fodder or a tech. Again, there are some decks that don't really appreciate their 1 column card being cut off from trigger effects and restanding abilities and whatnot, and that's kind of what he's here for. What I like to do is kind of like a bob and weave thing with this deck, right? You get a lot of cards in your hand. You can either overwhelm and get even more cards in your hand, or you can afford to ditch some more of those cards, make your hand just a bit smaller, and go for something like Merciless that has a bit of an extra effect that can push your opponent a bit or hold them off in a more unique way. And that's what this guy does. If you don't know what he does, counterblast 1, you can choose a unit. It cannot be targeted by any card effects or abilities, and he gains 5k for every face-up copy of Merciless. You just need the 2, though. So either flip fodder or any little tech. We then run 2 Stun Beetle. Yeah, here's another weird one. I ran this more as a joke, right? Because I ran the 3 Obturandus beforehand, and then I quickly began to realize I almost never used Obturandus at all. Period. Not the 3, not 2, literally at all. I almost never once used him. There's very specific matchups where he's very good, but there are also ones where he just is, there's no point. What I decided to do was, again, I went for this bob and weave method where I have a lot of cards in my hand. I can afford to throw out something like this and bait perfect guards, or possibly have the effect go off and put my opponent into a position that kind of sucks. Now, PGs are very sacred to your opponent, of course. Zoa existing has been a very odd turn of events for games now, when you're playing against any Zoo clan, and having to draw out a PG from your opponent, having to make your opponent part from that perfect guard is just amazing. I love it. Or my favorite thing in the world is to flip one of these with Overwhelm, go for this single one. They don't know you run 2, and they still drop a ton of guard. It's guard baiting at this point. And if you can afford to do it, absolutely do it. But if you're playing something that is going to completely just whoop you the second you allow your hand to drop a little below the average, obviously don't go for him. He becomes flip fodder at that point. But I can tell you right now, I would not have ran this if it did not have results, and if the results were not consistently beneficial. So, this is coming from somebody who has a lot of experience with this deck. I would not run this if there was not results that were beneficial to this. So, you are completely free to try it out. I highly recommend it. It's a cute idea. If not, whatever, you can add 2 more Obturandus to this, or whatever suits your fancy, really. Doesn't really matter. New boy, 1 Anguish Sword. Right, so, try this guy out. Again, this is more or less a flip fodder card that replaces one of the 2 Obturandus that I took out. Oh, no, I'm sorry, but this is what I put in when I took out one of the fourth Overwhelm, excuse me. Outside of being a flip fodder, this guy has a very unique skill. It's kind of must-1. Dark Device. Choose a unit for every... Choose one of your units for every resting unit your opponent has. Give it 4k. If 3 or more units were chosen, you are allowed to countercharge 1. So you can get them off for free, basically. Now you're asking where does this have use? Where this has use, or this punishes people for rushing me early. You run into 2 different kinds of players. People that will play conservatively against Gridora because they know that they're going to be getting hit with a lot of numbers, and people that will try to rush Gridora when, grade 2 rush Gridora, or if they're the ones that read grade 3 first, they'll rush with, what they have in their field. And this punishes those kind of players. Going for this first stride when they have a full field, calling out a full field again with, things that go back into the soul, pull more resources out of your deck so that push doesn't hurt your guard potential at all, and things that are like 10k boosters, 16k attackers, blah, blah, blah. And giving the whole field, literally having this be 1 step down from Sunlight Gurgit, whatever his name is, that gives everything like 5k. It's really interesting, and it's only happened a couple times, and when it does, it's really amazed me how dirty this card can be and how unexpected it is. I've really enjoyed it. I love the art. I think it's a really cute card. It's just really neat to see this. I like art like this in Megacolony. I also wish we could swap these 2. I really wish this guy was more of like a shinier front line, but yeah, give it a try. It's been really neat. Again, 3 Obturandus is seen in a lot of builds, not in mine in particular, but if you don't like a few of these changes, the extra 2 Obturandus are really nice. And of course we have the 1 Obturandus, very situational to certain matchups. I don't really see, he doesn't really see a lot of play, and in my opinion, where he does see play is in things like Gize being a thing. I use him a lot in a lot of Gize matchups. Aqua Force, Nova Grapplers are very relevant, but really that's kind of where it stops. I think and Neo Nectar is another one, but yeah, he doesn't see a ton of play in my personal experience. Which is why I took him down to 2. And if he was a cheaper card, it would probably be a different bit. If he was a cheaper card, it'd be a bit different. I could see running 3 of him. But in this position, I just like the 1. I'm very comfortable just using the 1. Because right after that, you're gonna bite them back with another Overwhelm play or something else. It's just been my comfort zone in terms of how this card plays. But again, I highly encourage you to try out different things of this build because there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of neat little things you can do with the cards that we now have. Obtyrannus is a really neat card. He is phenomenal, but I feel like there's too much situation involved there. So, and another thing that would that goes with that is the cost as well of Counterblast 2 drop 1. You do have a Counterblast 2 play combo going on with pretty much everything else that you would go into, but there's more coming out of it. There's Counterblast 2 for Overwhelming Gridora because you're blocking out the column and you're drawing a shit ton of cards, or you're getting the quad rev and a crit. This is just they can't call, and it's Counterblast 2 and a draw 1 and a discard 1, and that pulls away from more resources, and it's it's a really good card, but just, again, personal experience, just not what I was going for. 1 GB8 because giving everything 5k for every resting unit is really neat. And then we run into the MVP of the deck. You know him, you love him. He's a cute boy. We got 1 Zoa. Oh boy. Making your opponent hang on to their perfect guards like it is just their heart and their soul. The one thing that stands between you, and instant loss to them is just phenomenal. Counterblast 2, draw a card. You can call any card, and that card becomes 99,999. And when it hits your opponent, they lose instantly. I love him. Zeroth Dragons were something I didn't agree with at first, but this card's so good. And with a deck that hits so hard, it is so nice to see that they gave us something like Zoa that just has them hang on to their perfect guards. Like, you have a game where they, damage check 2 perfect guards, they soul charge it, and I was like, oh god, no! So I like the fact that just from this card existing, there is so much potential fear and your opponent has to deal with just to play against you. And I love the mind game, because that is the entire shtick of Megacolony, is the mind games you play and the mental stress, and I love it. And then to round off the deck profile here, we have Perfect Guards, which is 3 Morphosian. She's a better Scarab Gas, basically. If they have 2 more, I want to read that correctly. If the number of opponents standing rear guards is 2 or less, she gains 10k. Very nice, very good, clean, easy power bonus. 1 Relish Lady. You don't use her too often. You have a lot of guard power now, so you can make up for her lack of power gain. It's nice to gain these extra resources of, you get an extra counter charge, you get an extra soul, you get to draw 1. It's nice just to even up the playing field in terms of damage. And we still want to run 1 Grace Fort, which has put in a lot of use, surprisingly. It's actually a really good card against things, like Aqua Force, for example. Really take a hurting to this card. Anything with the dominating presence in the back row. Nova Grapplers, they have a couple decent boosters now. And it's just really solid, really nice card. But that rounds up the deck profile. I know it's a bit different, and going into this, I had some second thoughts about even doing a deck profile because difference, things that are a little bit different in the game just kind of rub people the wrong way sometimes. So, you know, it's I can definitely assure you again, a lot of time and effort and a lot of thought has gone into this deck. This isn't me just throwing shit together and seeing what works. I've really enjoyed this build, and you know, maybe there will be more changes to come in later dates. But for right now, I'm very comfortable with this deck. I have made very minimal changes almost since day one, and honestly, I can just say with absolute certainty, this deck has turned such a new leaf that as somebody who's literally played Megacolony since this day one, since before English sets hit the stores, right? When we're buying crap from from online, and I mean, within days of being able to buy it online, I bought a bunch of packs in the first sets and it had Megacolony in it, and I slapped them together with like Kagero, with Nova Grappler stuff, and that was my deck for the longest time. And then getting Master Beetle and blah 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 blah, and building up, and now we're here. I love this deck a lot. I love the clan a lot, and a lot of love has gone into this deck, so take what you will from that. And of course, if you guys have any questions at all, any thoughts or opinions or anything, any ideas you want to bounce off of me, just please, in the comments, by all means. I always try to get back to people with the few and far between comments I get. And I'm always really happy to just talk to fellow Megacolony players and get a feel for what's out there, But anyway, I'll see you guys later. Remember to comment, rate, subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos. I don't know what's to come. I don't have a ton of time anymore, but we'll see what happens. So, see you guys later. Bye. Turn off camera.